those of you who are on the Speak In app and those of you who are on the webinar, you will actually be able to see the presentation as well as hear the entire information about this presentation today. If you are watching on VK, Instagram, or on Facebook, then you won't be able to see the presentation, but you will be able to ask questions and get them answered. So, without any further ado, let's just get started. So, our first thing that we want to do right now is just to tell you a little bit about why we're here and what we're doing here. So, I see some more people have joined. Hello, Anna. Hello, Sergey. Again, if you can't hear me or if you don't have any sound, then type in the number 3 to let me know that you can hear me. Great. Everybody, if you could do that right now, that would be excellent. Type in the number 3 if you hear me right now. All right. And we'll actually do this. Great. It looks like on the Speak In app, you actually also do not see the presentation, but you will see me. So, all right, great, everybody. We are ready to start. Anna says no sound. 3. Okay, everybody hears us. Great, great, great. All right. So, okay, the first thing that we're going to talk about today, life in Russia. Life after Russia, sorry. Life after Russia. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but you know, I moved back to the United States not long ago. So when I came back from living in Russia and I came back to the United States, I really was surprised about some things that happened, and that's what I want to share with you guys today too. So. When you have any questions, just feel free to write that question in the comment box. And I will try to catch all the comments on all the different platforms and try to answer you as well. So, first of all, life after Russia. My name's Chris Huntley. If you don't know me already, probably you do because you've probably found one of my pages or a group or something like that. So my name's Chris Huntley, and I'm here to talk about life in the United States today. And you can find me at a lot of different on a lot of different social media platforms. You can find me, you know, in a lot of different places. So let's just talk a little bit about that. VK, it's a platform in Russia. Facebook, I think it's a worldwide platform, and so is Instagram. And you know, you can find me there by searching for English with Chris or English with Chris Americos. Chris Americos is the name that I use a lot to promote myself. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me and why I am doing this webinar and why I'm doing these different videos. So let me give you a little bit of the backstory. From 2009 to 2016, I lived in Russia, and first of all, in 2009, I moved to a city in Russia called Yekaterinburg. And this city is actually the third or fourth, it changes every year, third or fourth most populated city in Russia. And a lot of people in other countries don't know that. So that's something that, you know, surprised a lot of people when I moved there, and it surprised me too. So I moved to Yekaterinburg, Russia in 2009, and then I got certified to teach English as a foreign language. And that's probably one of the things that I'm the most proud of and the things that I am, you know, happiest about in my life. I'm really happy that I made the decision to do that because it really helped me decide, you know, what I want to do. Because languages, so this thing really helped me out. I see someone writing, hey, I live in Yekaterinburg. Hey, if you live in Yekaterinburg, that's awesome. I will probably be there sometime soon, but I can't say right now. I'm in Florida, in the United States, in Tampa. And by the way, guys, if you see me on your screen looking to the left or to the right or up or down, that's because I have a lot of different screens here so that I can be on all these different platforms at exactly the same time. So, you know, just deal with it this time. And next time, like I said, everything's going to be back in our private webinar platform. Alexei, hey, thanks for coming. So let me continue the story about self and who I am. So like I certified to teach English as a foreign language, and that's something that I really love doing. And then I worked for about 1.5 years as an English teacher before I set up Colombia Language Center, which is in Yekaterinburg. And it's a business in Yekaterinburg where American citizens and people from other English-speaking countries come to Yekaterinburg and work as English teachers. They get certified before they come, and then they come and they work as English teachers, and they help teach Russian people English. So that's one of my proudest moments also, because this language center has really helped a lot of people, and we've had thousands of students come through this language center, and a lot of them have really amazing results. Like some of our students started out as beginners and went all the way through an advanced program and then moved to Australia, and they still live there now. And lots of our students have actually gone on to enter universities and schools abroad. So, so we want to help people learn English, and this is one way that I've been able to do that, is not only by teaching myself as an English teacher, but also as a person who is able to manage other teachers and train other teachers. And that's something I'll talk about in a second. And another thing that I'm really proud that I've been able to do, and something that I was able to do between 2009 and 2016, is learn Russian. So I don't speak Russian perfectly, but I'd say that I'm more or less fluent because, I've been in a lot of different situations, and I've been speaking Russian for a long time now. It's not that long, but longer than many people have. So, 7 years of experience is a pretty good record. So 2009 through 2016, right? Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I've been. And now I'm going to tell you what actually happened. So between 2016 and 2017, I made a lot of big changes in my life. First of all, I moved to Tampa, Florida, which you might know has a little different climate than Yekaterinburg, Russia. So no snow here, more beach, and a lot of sunshine. So that's great. Another thing that I did while in this last year period from 2016 to 2017 is I created a professional development program for teachers. And this program helps teachers before they even start working in Russia as an English teacher, and after, because in different countries, different jobs are done differently. So now I help out language centers in Russia and in other countries to deal with their HR, with teachers, teacher training, and professional development. So that's something pretty cool, and that's new. Then I got licensed as a real estate agent. So in the United States, it's a little different than in other countries, and you need to go through a lot of training, and you have to be licensed to do this job. You can't just sell property and represent someone else. You need to actually have a license. So the government controls this. After that, I became a Fintech Investor. If you don't know what that is, it's financial technology. And there's a lot of interesting things happening right now in this sphere. So, I spend a lot of time getting into it. And now I feel like that's one of the things that I know a lot about. So I've been able to help other people get into this type of investment. And yeah, so let's not talk anymore about that. Let's talk about the last thing. Between 2016 and 2017, I also opened consultancy practice. And this is where I consult small and medium-sized businesses on how to get more clients using things like social media marketing, digital marketing, and other things like that. So moving forward, this is, like I said, this is the first of this type of webinar, and it's also a live video on Instagram, Facebook, and VK. And but I am going to be focusing almost completely on having everyone on the webinar platform moving forward. So you will need to register for future webinars, and the future webinars are going to be more focused on different things for learning English, improving your English, and especially about speaking. Because I don't know, how about I get some answers from you guys? Would you like to speak like a native speaker? Why do you want to speak like a native speaker? What's so cool about speaking like a native speaker? I mean, this is something that we're going to be talking about in our next series of webinars. So keep that in the back of your mind, and you can write me some answers in the comments right now. But if you don't have time to write it right now, join the next webinar. It's going to be at englishhacks.chrisamericos.com. That's where you can find out about the future webinars. All right, so let's talk about the topic for today's webinar, right? Today's webinar is Life After Russia. And Life After Russia is about living in America and things that people need to get used to when they move to America. I see someone wrote an answer to my question about speaking like a native. Dimitri, hey, thanks for the comment. We just need to speak somehow. It's not necessary to speak like a native. I 100% agree with you, and that's like one of the main points that we're going to bring up in our series of webinars called English Hacks. So hack like to break the code, to get into the language. So like I said, you can find out more information about the future webinars at English Hacks. That's one word, no spaces or dashes. englishhacks.chrisamericos.com. Great. So first of all, what is this webinar about? This webinar is going to be about three things. First part is going to be about common differences. The second part is going to be about technological changes. And the third part is going to be about intergenerational behavior. So if you don't understand what things are, that's okay. We're going to talk about them. So the first, I see we have a question over here on Instagram. Do you miss Russian food? There is some Russian food that I miss, and I can't say that I miss all Russian food. I definitely cannot say it. But there are some things that I miss. For example, a lot of soups. I really like Russian soup. That's something that it's really enjoyable to me. So, yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the topic of today, which is Life After Russia. Yeah, there's some things that I miss, but we're mostly going to be focusing today on some other aspects that will be useful for everyone. Okay, so common differences. The first thing that we need to know is, common differences, we're talking about what most people notice when they come to the United States. So you've probably heard lots of rumors, you've probably heard a lot of information about how the United States is different from your country, but it doesn't mean that they're all true, right? Well, let me tell you how a person who lived abroad, who lived in Russia for 7 years and then moved back to the United States, let me tell you how I view some of these common differences. So first of all, before we talk about each topic, I'm going to introduce a big concept. And the big concept here that you should think about before we talk about how people are different in the United States and in other countries. First, think about this. Sometimes two people who live in the same country, but one who lives in an urban area and the other lives in a rural area, have more differences than two people who live in different countries. So if you missed some of those words, we're talking about that maybe two people who live in different countries are more similar than two people who live in the same country, but one person lives in the city and one person lives in the country. So What do you think about this? Go ahead and share your opinion in the comment sections. And this is the first thing that we're going to talk about, the big difference. So before we talk about the big differences between United States and other countries, let's actually talk about, between cities and countries, because not cities and countries, but between the city and the country. Living in an area where there's a lot of people and living outside of that area. So urban area with lots of people and rural. So these are different things that affect how people behave and how people think. And sometimes, you might say, oh, all the people in this country do this, but it might not be correct, because you actually are talking about the people near your resort when you went on vacation in that country, or maybe you went to an area where there aren't a lot of people, or a small town or city, small city outside of a big population. Then probably they're going to act and behave differently and have different traditions and things like that. So definitely, you need to think about this before you make any judgments. All right. So when we think about life in the city and life in the country, we want to actually talk about the country, right? So there's a large variety of places, lots of different types of places, things that you can try. And life in the country is different because it's smaller and there are well-known businesses. So let's imagine that you live in a city, then you start a business, like let's say you start a restaurant, and you're trying to get people to come to your restaurant, right? Well, there's thousands of other restaurants too. So your restaurant needs to be very, very cool to be the best restaurant in the city. But when you live in a small town or a village somewhere, you're one of the only restaurants. So everybody knows you and everybody goes there if you do business right. So it's more about making a connection with the local people than having the coolest restaurant and having the best things. Instead, it's more about connecting. So I see you guys are writing some messages on VK too. Sorry guys, I'm not going to be kicking anybody out. Trolls, all kinds of people can write whatever messages they want there. That's why next time you need to register for the free webinars that we're going to have. Go to englishhacks.chrisamericos.com. All right, and you should find a link to that in the comment section somewhere. One of our moderators will be sending links. Great. So, okay, when you live in the city, there's also a more multinational population. People are more interested in the world because they can really see how it's useful to them. So, when you live in a place where there's nobody from any other place, nobody from any other country, everyone's from your country, a lot of people just think like, why do I need to know about other countries? Why do I need to know about other people? And, maybe that's true as long as you stay in that place. But we find that in cities, people are more interested in other countries and in meeting other types of people. And in the country, in small towns, people are more conservative. People want things to stay the same. They don't want them to change. In the country, outside the city, there's less pollution. Means less pollution, of course, and it means less people, of course, but also means that it's quieter. So in the country, we have more privacy and it's quieter. Less pollution, more privacy. That sounds pretty good, right? Why don't more people want to go live in the country? So this is something that we want to think about, the difference between living in the country and living in the city. Great. So Now let's actually talk about real things about living in America, right? Because that stuff, it's about living pretty much anywhere. And I'm going to be bringing up some, big ideas, some big words. So if you have registered for the webinar, you're through our webinar program, then you'll see all of these slides and words and all this information. If not, just try to listen, try to catch the word, use a dictionary if you need to, or leave a message and I'll get back to you after the video ends. Great. So what we're 6 things that are different about the United States, or things that maybe you noticed or people think about, but I'm going to kind of tell you about them in a little different way, okay? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is provincialism, being provincial. This comes from the word province. So being provincial means that, being provincial means that people in this place don't really understand world concepts. People in this place, I see Speak In guys are telling me that the mic got turned off somehow. All right, I'm back. Sorry, guys. So right now we're talking about 6 things that most people notice that are different in the United States. The first one is provincialism, being provincial. And I said provincial means that you have more of a small mindset. It means that you are focused on, you don't really learn that much about the world and how it works. This is kind of a stereotype of being provincial. So, okay, being provincial. Most people's awareness of world issues comes from films and popular culture, or from extremely biased news sources. This is one of the things that we're going to talk about today. One of the surprises about living in the United States. So people in other places around the world, they tend to think that in the United States, people know a lot about international issues, right? Because in other countries, people are discussing the United States and issues about the United States a lot. They know a lot of things that happen in the United States. They know what the president's doing in the United States. Do any of you, if anybody's from here is from Africa, you might know this, but anyone else, do you know who the president of a country like Mozambique is, or Namibia, or other countries like that? Probably not. But everyone around the world knows who the American president is, more or less. So this is something that people assume, people have a stereotype that when they come to America, American people are going to know all of these things that affect the world, decisions of America and things like that. And actually, people don't. Some people actually say that the United States is one of the most provincial countries in the world. And I can understand how someone might think that, because in the United States, people are not very aware of what's happening around the world. You have 1 or 2 news sources that you read or watch, and usually you watch the same ones or read the same ones. And this information tells you something about how the world works, but from the eyes of the United States. So there's a word that I used earlier, biased. Biased means not objective. And when someone is not objective, when someone's biased, they don't really think about the fact that it could be any different. They just say, this is the fact. I think this because of this, and I'm right, and I'm not going to listen to anyone else. And, they can be kind of stubborn. They have a bias. They have a reason why they lean that way, why they choose those things. So actually, the United States is kind of provincial because people don't like to accept or even consider that the way that things are now in their country are wrong, or could be different, or could be better. Instead, they think, this is the best country in the world, or the most powerful, or the most influential right now. And a lot of people think that that means that whatever I do, it's okay. Whatever I do, it's right. This is something that takes some getting used to when you get to the United States, because people might do some very strange things and just think it's okay, it's normal, or they might think, why can't I do what I want? Everyone should be able to do what they want, and that's a great concept when you apply it to yourself, but when you apply it to an entire society, it doesn't work out so well. So being provincial, that's one thing that you're going to be surprised about when you come to the United States, is that people are not so interested in developing themselves. People, again, remember that I'm talking about United States in general and some stereotypes, because we have differences between people who live in cities and people who live in the country. So of course, people who live in the country are more provincial than people who live in the city in general. But the way the United States and most big cities in the United States are set up is that, not many people actually live in the city. Most people live in suburbs. And these suburbs are a nice, comfortable place where you can take your values and what you believe in and have your own place and stay there for the rest of your life if you want. And that's great. That provides a lot of stability, and things have worked out so far doing that. But unfortunately, a lot of people in this situation don't want to further advance themselves or anything like that. Instead, they want to have that safety of what they know and what they believe. Okay, so that's enough about that. Let's move forward. Another thing that you're going to be surprised about if you move to the United States is about friendliness. And this is another one of our stereotypes, things that people think of when they come to the United States already. People are always smiling. People are always friendly, trying to talk to you. And I have to say that this is something that's true. People smile more in Western countries, and in the United States, people smile a lot. Sometimes, because they're really happy, sometimes because they want a different reaction from you. There's a lot of reasons why they might smile at you. However, just because they're smiling doesn't mean that they're friendly. Do you understand that? Because people actually are going to be smiling at you because they want something from you, right? And people are friendly to you because they want something from you. So, someone comes up to you and starts talking to you and says, "Hey, how's your day going? It's beautiful outside, isn't it? Why are you here? Oh, this is my name. Nice to meet you. What are you doing later? Do you want to talk about this thing?" All of that, yeah, it might sound like it's friendly. It might look friendly, but usually people just want something from you. So is it being friendly, or is it just being indirect? That's another topic that we're going to bring up along the way. Another stereotypical idea that people have about the United States, and maybe you've thought of this and maybe not, but the idea of disillusionment. Disillusionment. That's right. It's a big word. Might not have heard it before. Disillusionment. To be disillusioned. So, okay, let's talk about the word first and then what it means here in our context. Disillusioned, from the word illusion. Probably you have a word like this in your language too, if you speak some kind of Indo-European language. So, illusion, something that you see but it's not real. And disillusionment is when you understand that the thing that you saw before wasn't real. And usually you're disappointed or sad about this. So we use this word a lot when we talk about systems that break, or governments that don't do their job, or role models who we find out aren't very good people. Things like this. So we had some kind of idea, and we had this illusion, we had this this thing that we saw that wasn't real, and then we understood that it wasn't real anymore. And that's when we became sad about it. So disillusionment. This definitely describes some situations with people in America. People in America, for the most part, remember, we're talking about stereotypes, and we're talking about, in general, people, the general population as a whole. So we talked already that we said already that people in cities and people in the country definitely behave differently, and sometimes even more differently than people from different countries. But we're taking general stereotypes here. So people in the United States, in general, have some kind of ideal way that they believe the world should work, and the government should work like this. There should be justice. Things should be fair. Words like justice and fair and that's right or that's not right, or things like these concepts. These are really important to American people. In every country there's corruption. In every country there are people who take advantage of the system. In every country there's a lot of bad things that happen that don't benefit the general population, right? But for some reason in the United States, most people overlook this, or they what we say in English is turn a blind eye. So they pretend that they don't see it. And this is really a surprising thing that I understood that Americans were like this before I came back to the United States. But when I came back to the United States, I really started understanding that people in the United States in general, not all people, but most people, they aren't really aware of the fact that that systems aren't perfect, that the government can make mistakes, and that this is something that happens all the time. So I use the word disillusionment here because for American people, when they find out that something is broken, something doesn't work the right way as far as politics, government, laws and police and things like this, when they find out that something doesn't work the right way, they usually their reaction is they're very angry about it. They're sad, they're angry, they're frustrated. Why doesn't it work this way? It's supposed to work this way. The rules are clearly written. It should work this way, and in reality, it should be this way. So they rely on some kind of ideal way that life should be. Whereas in most other countries, especially in non-Western countries, everyone understands that's life. People cheat, people lie, people steal, governments are corrupt, systems break. So this is something that that is way, way, way different that I've noticed. So maybe you guys can write some comments and tell me what you think about stereotypical people in your country, and if they are that the system is going to work, or they expect that it doesn't work. And then when it doesn't work, they either are disillusioned and they say, wow, why did that happen? Or they say something like, of course that happened. That's life. That's how governments work. So these are two different perspectives, and it's kind of surprising to see that in American people. So let's look at our next topic, identity of nations. Many people honestly believe that even though they don't speak the language and have never been to the country, that they are from that country, or that they relate to that country. And what I'm talking about is in America, there are a lot of people who they've never been to Italy, they don't speak Italian, their great-great-grandmother was from Italy, and they tell everyone that they're Italian. They have things like pasta and pizza and say, hey, it's Italian food. It's my home food. And they say other things like, they might have an Italian flag in their house and carry it around, or in their car or something like this. And they might even, it gets to the point where they might even watch news about international events, and they might argue or fight for that country, even though they've never been there and they don't speak the language, that they're completely American. But because someone in the past was from there in their family, they now are ready to fight for this country. I remember this happened with Ukraine. So there was a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and there are some American people who they have a last name that's Ukrainian because their great great grandmother came from Ukraine. They don't speak Ukrainian or Russian. They've never been to Ukraine. They don't want to go to Ukraine, but they just say, "I'm Ukrainian." And so then when there are stories in the news about things that are happening in Ukraine, they start to talk about it. Well, it's terrible that people are fighting Ukrainian people. You're not Ukrainian. That's what I always want to say. So this is a thing that's a big surprise to me, because you can meet people who really are from Ukraine or Brazil or wherever, and then you can go to the United States and someone says, "Oh yeah, I'm Brazilian," and then you find out that that was 7 generations ago, and now they don't really know anything about the country. And if they met a real Brazilian person would say, "Dude, you're not Brazilian." So that's another thing that's surprising. Here's one that people always like to bring up. Roads. Roads and transportation in the United States. And this is something that's a little surprising. So, okay, first of all, in the United States, when you come to a red light, you can turn on red. You can turn right on red. Usually red means stop, I know. But in the United States, in most states, you can turn right on red. And this means that if you don't turn right on red, people behind you might get really angry and might start honking at you. So this is something that is a little surprising when you first come to the United States. Secondly, a lot of people here have accidents, even though the roads are way better than anywhere else in the world. Not anywhere else, but a lot of places in the world. So there's a perfect road, very smooth, no problems at all. Lines painted, there's barriers on each side of the road, so you can't even drive off the road even if you tried. And they still manage to get in accidents from doing things like eating while they're driving, or playing with your phone, or other things that you just shouldn't do when you're driving. But because the roads are so good, people don't think that there's going to be any problem. So this is something also to get used to. Also, a lot of people talk about 4-way stops. So do you know what a 4-way stop is? 4-way stop, that's where there's 4 stop signs. So you have, people are driving this way, there's a stop sign. People are driving this way, there's a stop sign. This way, there's a stop sign. And this way, there's a stop sign. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4-way stop. And when you come to this 4-way stop, there's a rule. The person who got there first goes first. So this is, again, kind of about our disillusionment and about believing that things work or they don't work. That in the United States, things are very ideal. People want to believe ideals. And so the ideal situation is the first person who got there goes first. And this means, this assumes that we all know who got there first, and that the person who went first and the other people are actually going to follow this rule, right? Because if they don't, we're going to have a lot of problems. And in reality, it actually works in the United States. So this is something that, people believe that other people will follow the rule, and they actually do. Another one is using turn signals. Turn signal is the little arrow that tells you that you're going left or right in the car. So using turn signals in the United States, everyone uses them, and you use them before you turn. And you might put your turn signal on a long time before you turn, just to let other people know what you're doing. And again, because people believe in ideals, now they put on the turn signal because they believe that they need to share that information with other people, so that other people know where they're turning, and that's how the world should work. In other countries, that might be the rule, but people don't follow it. In the United States, people follow it more or less, and they get angry when people don't follow it. Remember that. That's part of the disillusionment, is that instead of understanding that people are imperfect and that people break rules and that people are corrupt and that people do bad things. Instead, the idea in the United States is to get angry when people break rules, when people do bad things. So that's a big difference, a thing that takes a lot of getting used to. Just last night, I was having a conversation with some guys, some friends, and one guy was talking about different things that are problems in our society and problems with our political system and different things like that. And telling all of this information, in different countries, people talk about this information all the time, but in the United States, there's a tendency to talk about even this information, even the fact that the system is broken and people are corrupt, talk about it in a way that says it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be ideal. So even describing the fact that it's broken or not ideal by saying how it should be ideal. This is a big difference. Great. And another thing is about parking in the United States. There's parking spaces and parking in the street. Nobody parks in the street. You should park in a parking space. If you don't park in a parking space, you will get towed. They will come with a big truck and take your car. And this happens all over the place. And these companies with these big trucks, they make a lot of money just towing people all the time because people park in the wrong place. And even parking in one of the parking spaces might be the wrong parking space and you might get towed. So there's a lot of things you have to look for and understand. And even if you're just going to run in someone's house for 5 minutes, park your car in the right parking space. So the last one here about the usual things that people notice is being direct. And we talked about it a little bit, but in the United States, being polite and being indirect is very, very important. Just crazy important, really, guys. By being direct too much, by being too direct in the United States, people will think that you're rude and people won't help you. Being polite is very, very, very important, and you should always say please and thank you and things like this. When people are really close friends, then they might stop doing this, but still, there's some other aspects of these relationships that are also built on this idea of being direct. For example, friends in the United States usually don't argue with each other about things that they don't agree on. So let's say that I believe that one thing is good and you believe the second thing is good. If I tell you, your thing is bad, why don't you believe what I believe? The other person is going to have a very emotional reaction. They're going to tell you that, no, I believe this and you should believe this too. So is that I'm not trying to make it sound like people don't argue, but arguments and differences of opinion between friends and between peers and different people in the United States, maybe even family members, they're not just understood as a difference of opinion. In other countries that I've lived in Russia, for example, people argue. And when you argue and have a difference of opinion, you just leave it at that. So you have a difference of opinion, and that contributes to the conversation. And that actually makes you trust the person more because he was able to be open enough to share what he really thinks instead of just agreeing with you. Whereas in the United States, the tendency is more to just agree with someone because you don't want to offend them, or to agree with someone because having a difference of opinion is a sign of a weak relationship, or just to agree with someone because you don't want to share what you really think. So this aspect of being sincere and being direct and things like that, it's different. Yeah, definitely different. And there's lots of words that people say in English, especially in American English, that don't really mean anything. So they don't mean anything. I mean, like, would you mind if it wouldn't be too much trouble? Could you possibly? And lots of polite words like this. A lot of people will try to get out of situations or not answer questions or avoid conflict by using this indirect language. And this is something that takes a lot of getting used to. And it's unusual at first because, you know, you might say to someone, "You told me you will be here at 9 o'clock. Where are you? It's 9:15 right now." And they're going to tell you some kind of excuse like, "I got stuck at work," or "there's lots of traffic," or something like this. Okay, whatever. Lots of people do that around the world. They don't just say, "I'm sorry, I promised you I didn't do it." Right? No, nobody's really that direct. But on top of that, people might also feel like they really need to apologize, deal with changing technology in the United States. So when you think of the United States right now, you probably think of it as one of the places where new technology comes from. But people in the United States tend to deal with technological changes in a much different way than other people. In fact, I'm going to say that in Russia, people are better at using new technology than in the United States. So there's a small percentage of people in the United States who immediately start using new technology. And in a lot of other countries, people get this new technology, more people have access to it, more people are open to using it. Again, these are stereotypes and these are generalizations. But if you look at the population of people who are between the age of 50 and 70, there was this big boom in technology, and people don't really feel the need still to this day to use the internet, different functions of cell phones and things like that. So first, let's talk about changes in communication and information sharing. Technology today is changing very quickly. So computers and cell phones are like old news. I mean, all of us use them, all of us have them. At least for people, you know, who are in my age. I'm 30 years old, and I'm getting out there. I'm getting up there. I'm getting pretty old now. But computers and cell phones are pretty usual for me and people who I know and people who are younger than me. But people in the generation before me or two generations before me, like my grandparents, you know, they have this information, they have these tools to communicate, but they don't really see it as a necessity. And that's because it's changing so fast. It's changing so fast that people don't see it as something that's going to be here forever. Do you understand? So why should I learn how to use, you know, the internet when the internet just came a few years ago and it's not going to last forever? It's not like these other industries. So instead, a lot of older people and a lot of people in general choose not to focus on this new technology, but they focus on proven industries. For example, real estate, like buying houses, buying offices. So real estate, for example, is an industry that's existed for a long, long time, very long time. And people believe that this is something that is going to stay around, you know? It's not going to change. So, okay, guys, I see that I have some requests to speak here on my webinar app. So I'm going to let these guys speak. First of all, Juliet wanted to say something, so I'm going to let her speak right now. And also Clarissa wanted to speak, so I'm going to invite her to speak with us right now as well. So you guys, are you there? Can you hear me? I don't hear you guys yet. All right. Well, it looks like somebody changed their mind. So let's continue then. Going to the next section, intergenerational behavior. So again, this is talking about young people, old people, and how they think differently about what's happening in the world. And here's our big concept. In some cultures, the elderly should stay at home and help raise younger generations. In other cultures, the elderly lead their own lives and take advantage of the free time that they have. So what about in your country? What happens in your country with people who are elderly or people who are older? So this is something that's a little different in the United States, and you might be surprised about it when you come. In the United States, elderly people try to have their own life. It's something that they are focused on. So, for example, you worked all your life, now you're retired, and you're on pension, retirement, and you travel the world. Or you get the car that you always wanted or the house that you always wanted because you've been working all your life. So this is kind of the mentality. Whereas when I lived in Russia, the mentality was, I need to support the younger generation. I need to, show them the right steps. I need to push them in the right direction. And so especially when we talk about money, when we talk about lifestyle, as far as I've seen in the East, there's much more push for elderly people to spend time with family and to help family organize the next generations of the family. Whereas in the West, the tendency is more for the elderly to focus on enjoying the last part of life. So, I think the best thing, of course, that everyone is going to answer in all the comments, I already see some of them, is that you need a mix of both things. So that's the best, right? Somewhere in the middle. But we can see that this is a clear difference in approach. And maybe not only for elderly people, maybe about families in general. That because the United States is a very individualistic country, each person is always trying to show his individual self. And this happens not only with friends and with acquaintances and peers, but it also happens inside of families. So let's talk about what people think about Americans in the movies and what people think about Americans in reality. When most people think about stereotypical Americans, they think of what they've seen in the movies. They think that all American holidays are celebrated exactly like in the films. They think that every American person knows every famous American actor. It's just not correct. It's just not true. In reality, there's lots of different types of American people. So there might be Chinese American, there might be Brazilian American, there might be Italian American. Each of those people has a lot of different traditions, and we can't really say one stereotype about any of them. So Americans are entertained by films for the same reasons that other people around the world watch films. So why do you watch them? There's some action, or there's some story, or a beautiful scene, or something like this, right? And you're entertained because of the actions that happen there. And for you, you're looking at the film, you're looking at the story, and you're watching the film and saying to yourself, American people really do that? Or someone does something really strange in the film, and like, oh, I guess it's an American thing. But for us in America, we look at this and we say, that's funny to us because it's not the usual thing that someone would do here. It's funny to us because it's so crazy. It's funny to us because, it's different. And that's what's entertaining. So when you're watching American films in the future, think of it like that. Like, oh, if the American film showed us this, that means that was supposed to be entertaining to American people also. Doesn't mean that that's exactly how American people are all over the world. Great. And American people don't really have a good idea of what it means to be an American person. like I said, there's so many different types of American people around the world. So they don't really have a good idea of what it means to be American, because I can walk down the street and there can be someone who looks Asian and he's American. And there can be someone who looks African, he's American. Someone who looks, Indian, and he's American. It doesn't matter what a person looks like. So there's no like one stereotype. There's no one idea of who an American is. Also, this presents a lot of problems because we don't have any standard for who is an American, what is an American, what a good American does. So that's where our laws and rules come in. And that's why American people love their rules and love their laws, and they don't want anybody to break them. And that's why they're so sad when they find out that, oh, wow, this politician is corrupt, or things that people in the rest of the world assume are happening, and things that are just natural that people accept. Instead, in the United States, people hold on to these rules and traditions because it gives them some standards to measure the society by, whereas they can't measure it by just being an American or not. So I see someone wrote a funny comment here. I thought every man in the U.S. was like Bruce Willis from Die Hard. If only. So moving to the next thing. A lot of people in America also believe that things that I think a lot of people get surprised about, that things don't happen how they everywhere else in the world, how they happen in the United States. So some of those things are essential documents. Essential documents meaning that things like driver's license. So in most countries you have a passport. In most countries you have a passport, and this thing gets you into different places. And if you ever need to prove who you are, you show your passport. In the United States, you need to show your driver's license. It's the most important document. And if someone asks you for your passport, it's going to be a really strange situation. Nobody asks for your passport. Everyone asks for your driver's license, no matter where you go. Even if you fly in the country, inside the country, you don't need a passport. You just need a driver's license. And if you go to a liquor store, buy alcohol or something like that, or something to drink, they're not going to ask you for your passport. They're going to ask you for your driver's license. I tried that one time. I gave them my passport and they said, "What? What is this?" I said, "It's a passport. It's better than a driver's license." They said, "No, I need to see your driver's license." So this is really an essential document. Another thing is, credit score. This is something that is very important in the United States. And lots of other things like establishing a place of residence. So we don't have registration in the United States, but you do need to have an official address that you live at. And this is used for your driver's license and for other documents. So if you don't have this, you'll be in trouble. And there's actually a list of a lot of documents that you need to prepare for before you come to the United States, or else you're going to have a lot of trouble doing anything here. So next, let's talk a little bit about success and money. Success and money are different in the United States. Things are really judged by money. You're successful if you have money. You're not successful if you don't. At least that's what a lot of people think. So, it's not really a stereotype. People in the rest of the world think, in America, everyone's only thinking about money, money, money. But it's really true that a lot of people think, something is good if it gives you money and something's bad if it doesn't. So this is something that you need to get used to. And people talk about this subject a lot, about money, about how much they make here, how much they spend there. So it's something that is, always being discussed. Food and diet. Believe it or not, a lot of American people eat fast food. That's because there's fast food everywhere, and other food is pretty expensive. So fast food becomes the only affordable thing for people who don't have a lot of money. And as far as diet, when we talked earlier about how people want to be, safe. They want to feel secure in their life position, what they've chosen to do. This is about diet too. So there's a lot of people who are overweight, but don't see that as a problem. They just say, that's my choice. And why can't everybody make their own choices? And I think that that's a good way to look at it. However, it's just clearly unhealthy. So there are a lot of problems with food and diet in the United States, and a lot of people don't want to try other types of food. Also, there's not really a good culture in a lot of families and between friends, and just in general, most people don't have a good eating culture. So this means that they hurry through their meals, don't really enjoy it. It's just fuel for them, just energy. We already talked about the role of family, and we already talked about friends a little bit, so we're not going to talk about those anymore right now. But that really, I see that the timer has already gone over an hour, so I'm trying to wrap this up here. So I just want to remind you guys that the next webinar is going to be about English hacks. So ways to understand English better and how to speak English better, how to speak English like a native speaker, really. That's what we're going to be talking about. So you can find out about my next webinars and next live videos by going to EnglishHacks.chrisamericos.com. And don't forget to register for anything. Don't forget to register for something there. At least, some of the nearest videos, webinars that are coming up. I believe the next one's going to be on Thursday. So the link, you'll find it in my profile on Instagram. You can find it as a post on Facebook or VK. If you're watching this through SpeakIn or through the other webinar app, then you can find it on any of those pages too, or you can just send a message right now and I will answer with a link. But that's webinar. That webinar is going to be on Thursday. Then there's going to be another one next week on Tuesday. So lots of webinars coming up, guys. If you want to practice English and if you want to, learn about things as far as English and English culture, this is definitely the place to be. We're definitely going to help you out to get you some results. That's the point. Today's video was, comparing and telling you some things about the cultural aspects of the United States. But the next several videos, the next series of webinars is going to be about how to speak like a native speaker. So we're really going to work on your pronunciation. We're going to actually, each person is going to have homework assignments, and I'm personally going to check them. So they're speaking practice homework assignments, and you'll actually speak, and I'll check you, and I'll help you correct your mistakes. And I'm just going to teach you a lot of skills and strategies and tips of how you can speak more naturally. So if you haven't done it already, make sure that you go to, EnglishHacks.chrisamericos.com, register for the upcoming webinars. And the schedule is we're having one on June 22nd, which is this Thursday, then one on June 27th, that's a week from today, so Tuesday, and then 3 in a row, July 4th, 5th, and 6th. So that's the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I look forward to seeing all you guys there, and I'm going to read through all the messages again that you've sent while the video's been going. And I will see you guys next time. So thanks again for participating, and